This is The Body's Compass with your host, Matt Sorensen, and today's guest, Zach Deane. Zach grew up with his mum running a naturopathic health and wellness business, his father being an actor, entrepreneur and investor, and two stepdads, one a yoga teacher and one a psychotherapist at his own leadership and personal development company. Zach went to a Rudolf Steiner school and struggled badly with learning, reading, retention, spelling. He didn't know how to spell his own name until grade 5, which taught him that the problem is almost never intelligence. It is almost always the wrong method. Today, Zach takes people through his 10X operating system, Breakthrough Mastermind, and is the host of the Breakthrough Mastermind podcast.
Welcome to The Body's Compass. I'm your host, Matt. Today I'm with a very interesting human being, Mr. Zach. Is it Deane? Did I say that right?
That's
Zach
it, Zach
Deane. You've heard a little bit
Zach
about
Deane,
him
like James Dean.
in the nice. Heard a little bit about him in the intro, but Zach, just so we get straight into it, I like the listeners to get to know you a little bit more, so they can have a bit of a connection to who you are and how your background is going to influence your viewpoints today. Can you share a bit of an overview of what shaped you as a man and why you've put so much energy into working with founding businesses, podcasts, wellness offerings, etc.?
Wow, what a great first question. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here. Our mutual friend, Peter Williams, introduced us, and I'm always grateful to share my story. And hopefully there's someone out there that will resonate, feel inspired, and take some action towards their goals and dreams. So, wow, what a good question. Why am I the man I am today? Was that the question? Well, look, the short story, I don't want to bore you guys too much, but I grew up in Perth. My mother's a naturopath. She was a single mom and she put herself through schooling and then did body work and naturopathy, helping people with their health to, I guess, bring me into the world. And I went to a Rudolf Steiner school, so a school that's off the grid. I was learning gardening, sustainable living.
Nice.
Nothing we wore was branded, and everything we did was in with nature, with the rhythm, no plastic. There was no television till the age of 7. And it was just a very natural upbringing. And so within that, I struggled a lot in school though, even though we learned like eurythmy and music and dance, and we learned Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, and we did plays every year, and we did this very creative stuff. When I moved from Perth to Sydney when I was 12, I went to a normal Catholic school, and I couldn't fit in. I didn't read or write very well, but I knew how to use a protractor and compass, and I knew how to, connect with people and be present at the dinner table and not on my smartphone or phone back then. And so that really shaped me growing up. And I was so angry at my mom for sending me to this school because I didn't fit in to the normal schooling. I couldn't read or write. I couldn't, hit my grades. And I felt I was actually held back a grade. That's kind of how bad and how stunted my growth was in that model of education. It took me like another 10 years to then actually appreciate my mum because of how incredible Rudolf Steiner was. His understanding on, gardening, sustainable living, understanding the ether, electroculture, education against pharmaceuticals. This guy was so ahead of his time. Are you kidding me? And I'm so grateful to have gone to that school now. Someone apparently a couple of years ago from a Rudolf Steiner school won a Nobel Prize. But that's probably the top of the educational echelon of the Rudolf Steiner education, which is still pretty good. But at the same time, the dark side of having freedom-based parents and, hippie type new age thinking parents is that there were no rules. Now, there's pros and cons to having no rules. As a result of that, I hung out with some people that I shouldn't have hung out with, and associated with some people that I shouldn't have associated with. But one of the biggest breakthrough moments in my life was moving. My mom got married. My first stepdad was a yoga teacher. I had a yoga school. And the second stepdad, that was like a 7-year relationship. And our second relationship was with a psychotherapist. Ran workshops and retreats called Core Energetics. and would have every Wednesday, 100 to 300 people doing body psychotherapy movements, understanding character structures and different types of philosophy on the mind and behavior. And I guess was then a part of this, and I just have been around it so long. That's taught me many, many lessons. But the interesting thing, and I guess to answer your question and to go back on that, is like I was spending time with people that didn't have much structure or order in their life. And because of that, there was drugs and alcohol and partying and things like this that I got associated with really early. And because of my second stepdad, I'm so grateful for him. We moved from Perth to Sydney when I was 12. And later did I find out that my friends that I was associating with back in Perth, they got into hard drugs. And then because of that, the ice and the weed took them into psychosis, and some of them ended up in hospital. And I was associating myself with them. And I'm the type of person that I'm just going to be like, yeah, let's do it. I'll be a part of that. So I probably would have been a part of some really unhealthy habits and things that would have potentially stunted a lot of my development, not just my learning with Rudolf Steiner. So that's kind of like the dark side of having freedom, is like, there's no rules, there's no boundaries. And so what I learned later in my life is that boundaries are important because they create the edges of a beautiful garden or a beautiful house or a city or just like, a swamp has no borders. But a beautiful garden has borders and structure, and like a farm has different sections. And so I guess, in reflection, I've learned a lot about my upbringing just from, meeting other people in the world and how my upbringing was slightly different and slightly odd. And that's been a foundation. Holistic health and wellness, alternative medicine, thinking outside of the box. That's my, my norm. And so, and probably the biggest lesson I learned through that is there's no one thing that creates enlightenment. One of my first stepdad ended up having a mental breakdown and ended up becoming a cross-dresser, ended up becoming, and getting into ice and alcohol and ended up living homeless after that. And so it was a very shocking moment when I heard about that years later, because I thought meditation, yoga, up at 4 a.m, meditating, doing sun salutations was the answer to enlightenment. And I realized, I was like, maybe it's not, we were vegetarian for 6 years growing up, and my mom and stepdad, they did, I guess, a lot of satsang, which was like a Indian guru type church they went to every Sunday. And unfortunately, because of whatever was going on, whether it's chemical or biological or spiritual, there was mental illness in those relationships. So at the age of 9, there was some mental illness that happened very, very close to me. And I kind of started to question, like, what is reality? What is real? People losing their mind and thinking that there's something here in their space, but it's not. Like, it's real for them, but it's not real, if that makes sense. So I have a super high value on being grounded in truth now, being grounded in the first principles of physics of this reality. As much as I love the woo-woo and the spiritual and the esoteric and the hidden mysticisms of this world, it's brought me back to actually valuing structure and order and truth. And I think there's one truth and there's one way. Everyone's figuring it out in their own personal way. And so to answer your question, why am I the man I am today? That's because of the men and women that I've been around my whole life. And I've been around some people that are incredible examples of men and some very, very horrible examples of what a man is. And so in doing that, I learned through example of what to do and what not to do. And here we are today, me just still figuring it out, doing the best I can to help co-create the healthiest and wealthiest people on the planet. So that's why we're here. I love these podcasts and appreciate being here.
You've had the whole show.
I haven't just had the whole show. I've got the front row seat at the crazy show. George Carlin, he says, living on this planet is like being at the circus, but living in America is like being in the front row seat of how crazy the world is. But no, I love George Carlin. He predicted his death. He's like, I'm going to die at 76 years old. And then he died. This very, very fascinating human. But yeah, life
Yeah,
is,
one of the
look, I've been,
shamans, there you go.
no, sorry, there's a lag. You go.
I was just going to say, one of the shamans I used to work with in San Diego, his wife, I think I met him whatever year that was, but he told me a story about his wife who had died 10 years prior, and she just woke up one morning and said, I'm gonna die on Monday. And he's like, okay, what? And she says, no, I've seen it. I've seen it, a vision very clear, and I know I won't be here come sort of Monday night. So they organized a big sort of party weekend. She got drunk and had lots of fun and all the things. And yeah, she, over Sunday night, Monday morning, she just passed away in her sleep. And she just sort of, she called it. And it wasn't he said it wasn't sad. It was just a celebration. They got to say goodbye to each other, but you know, being a shaman, they work through multi-dimensional, and they know it's not just physical, so they're able to connect non-physical. And he said it was actually just a really, really beautiful thing.
Super interesting. Wild. That it reminds me of how some tribes, there were stories, these tribes that live on the land, I think in Native American Indian culture, they'd have the bison, and there would be these tribes that they live in, and they wouldn't want to kill all the animals, right? There's a certain respect and honor to each animal death, and it was a ritual that was respected to the greater. And there were, from time to time, animals that would go on top of this hill, and the animals that went on the hill, they would have the similar things, like they would die. They would like lay down and die, or they were like, I'm ready to pass over. And then those are the animals that they would kill and bring to the tribe. And having that such a deep connection with life, which is life rewards life, right? I think we're here for a reason. The more that we're here for a reason and do that reason on this planet, the more life comes to us, the slower we age, the more impact we have on others, you know, the more joy we feel, more fulfillment we feel. And at the same time, there's death, you know, but we don't talk about death much. We don't look at the other side. It's kind of suppressed and, you know, kind of hidden. But I guess going to funerals, it's very humbling to say, okay, this is a celebration for the next phase. It's just a completion. It's not a loss. It's, you know, their spirit is going on, but it's in that understanding. And similar to the shaman, wow, I guess, would you like to pass like that? I think I would. Have a quick party before I go out. That's not a bad idea.
Absolutely. Avoid all the aftermath of the party as well.
But yeah, closure and grief and processing that would be really challenging. But that's why we got to live every single day. Every time I jump on Zooms with people or clients, I'm like, they're like, how are you today? I'm living the dream, and we get one more day on this planet, to live our life to the fullest. How grateful we are. Yes. You know, and why not just bring that gratitude into everything? Because if I get to the end of my day, I put my head on my pillow and I'm like, so I've got racing thoughts, or I didn't do this, or whatever's going on, I know I've lived a life out of alignment. But if I can go to sleep and just reflect on the day and how grateful I am, I can go, wow, this was a day worth living. And I wish that for everyone. You know, it's possible. There's a strategy, there's a system. And unfortunately, some people have it worse or harder than others. But I think if we're here alive, it means that we're here for a reason. So we've got to find that purpose and live that purpose, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get deeper into that as we go. But you mentioned something just before we started recording. So you went from film and TV into health and wellness. Was it 15 years ago?
Well, out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to potentially go to university to do economics. In high school, I did legal studies, business, economics, 2-unit religion and English, and math, which I failed miserably. And I thought, I'm not going to get very good marks, but I actually nailed it and I got a pretty good mark. But I wasn't enough to get into economics or commerce at some of the universities. So my dad, my real dad wanted me to go join the army. He said, mate, you need to get more structured. You with these crazy hippies, you need to get more structure and order into your life. Go to the military, tax-free, go harden up as a man. And actually, I think that's a pretty smart idea. And part of me thinks I should have, but I didn't. And instead, my dad paid for some acting classes. And so I went to some acting classes to get over my confidence issues. I never spoke up in class. I never raised my hand to ask a question. All the presentations from stage, public speaking, I got an average because I sat at the back of the room and looked like I was having a panic attack. And the teacher was like, dude, we'll just move this on for you. Oh, it gives me shivers. But I got into acting. And then I got into acting because I got into Tony Robbins. I did Tony Robbins when I was 18. Before my HSC, I saved up my $2,000 that I had for my lifetime savings. I went to a VIP ticket with Tony Robbins just before I did my HSC, the last exam of my high schooling. And at that event, it taught me about posture and breath and meaning and NLP and just, energy and everything like this, emotions. And it totally changed how I showed up back at school 4 days later. People would look at me 4 days later and say, where's Zach gone? Where is that guy?
What's happened? Yeah.
Where's he gone? You killed him. I was like, I killed him. He's in the back. He's buried, And from that moment, I was like, wow. And Tony Robbins said a thing at the event. It was like, set a goal so big that even if you don't achieve it, at least by pursuing that, it's going to be a fulfilling exercise. At least it's something that you can look back on 10, 20, 30 years time and say, oh my gosh, it's who I became in that process. That's worthwhile. It's not the end goal. It's like who you become. And I was like, well, the biggest, most opposite personality or part of my being would be an actor, someone up on stage on camera being seen and heard and respected and being able to lead people from the front. Whoa. That was the most mind-blowing identity I would ever be at. And I set that goal because in high school, before that, I'd play computer games 16 hours a day, literally. I'd wag school, take days off to play World of Warcraft. But I ended up selling that account for $850. So I was pretty good. And that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey, selling my computer game character, a character. If you think about a game, my metaphor for life started to change into life is a game. If I do these things, my experience points go up. If I do this, they go down. What type of character do I want to create today? What type of character do I want to step in tomorrow, next week, next year, next 10 years? And because of that, I was like, I think I like who actors are. They're able to express and communicate and live in the present moment and have gravitas and persuasion. And I used to see actors with a state of status, to make change. Someone who's a leader is able to change the world. I think I was looking at Leonardo DiCaprio back then and his Greenpeace kind of green initiatives to want to change the world, which later did I find out he uses a private jet and, that's not very good for the environment. But I wanted to be someone and I thought, oh, actors are someone. And then that shifted one time when I was doing network marketing and I had a team, I had a dinner table after an event we ran. And I had all my friends there who one had lost 10 kilos. One had just got back in the gym. One's looking younger. One's reunited with their relationship. One's feeling happy and back in their power. And I realized at that table, I had influence. I didn't need to be on television. I didn't need to be on stage. I just needed to have conversations with people and support them with their goals and dreams, give them a system, which we had a nutritional cleansing program at the time. And at that table, I was like, oh, I don't need to be that identity of that actor. I can just be me. I can show up and I can help people one by one by one. And that was a massive turning point where I realized my purpose didn't need to come 10, 20 years down the track. My purpose is right now. I can live it today with just picking up the phone or messaging someone or organizing a catch up. Let's go. Let's change right now.
Yeah, so, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in the world. Like you mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, what's that summit in Switzerland they have to combat climate change or whatever it's called? and all the powerful people in the world just come on private
G20
jets.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the people making the rules and the laws about that aren't really abiding by their own rules and laws. And it's like a one set for them, one set for you. And we got more money, so we can do what we want, but you guys have to do that or you get taxed. And it's just this round and round and round it really goes, really. Zach, you mentioned your low point. If your mind, I'll say the other way around. If your body could talk during that low point, what do you think it was telling you?
Oh my gosh, which low point did I share? There's many. Did I share it here before the call?
Let's go the bad one, the big one.
Oh my gosh. So well, one of the lowest points in my life has been, gosh, if you want a story, it was about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, my business partner and I, we got into business acquisition. So we hired a mentor, paid 10 grand. He was teaching us how to do consulting for equity. We'd say, hey, we're going to consult your company in exchange for equity, and we're going to help find investment for you. This is one of the first times I've shared this story. And we found an investor. She was amazing. And we connected with her online through LinkedIn. And then we met up with her in Sydney for lunch, myself and 2 other my business partners. And we ended up having this incredible spark of creativity and business alignment. The next day she says, hey, let's go book in at one of the top office spaces. I'm going to buy you guys an office space. And this is like overlooking Darling Harbour, beautiful real estate. So we packed up and we went across on the ferry and we went to Circular Quay. We sat there and we were literally looking at office spaces for her to invest in us, to invest in our clients, and which we had a couple of clients at the time. And then next thing we know, we got another meeting with her and she said, I want to invest in your clients. Here's 500,000. Here's $1 million. Here's 5 million. Right. And then, so we got another 6 clients over about a month and a half. And she did the same thing. We took her to these meetings. She met everybody. This whole thing was an amazing, synchronistic, God-aligned experience. When I went home that first day, I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. We know people go their whole life trying to find an investor or go through many investors. We've spoken to one and she's the one. She owns a sovereign wealth fund from Tonga, Samoa. She's a royal family. She's got all these names, and she got us to sign contracts. It was all legit. We're like, this is the most incredible thing. We're so grateful. And some of my closest homies and different people in Sydney were clients and worked with us. We even went, the ex-CEO of Facebook, Stephen, he flew from Melbourne to see us in Sydney and he pitched us his business, which was a mental health frequency machine that would scan the brain and figure out exactly what mental illness someone has and actually have treatments in frequency and electromagnetism or PEMF stuff that would re-heal the brain. And we then had this meeting where they pitched us a $15 million investment. We had the top neurosurgeon in Florida Zoom in. We had this amazing thing. We were all suited up at this meeting and they pitched us. And that happened, a couple of different clients. We were connecting with some of the top legal lawyers in Sydney and accountants, some like big time. And she was so smart. She just had them running laps. And we were like, this is incredible. Who is this lady? People would listen to her. She would hold court. You could drop a pin and you could just hear the pin drop. That's how much people wanted to listen to this chick. And we took notes. We learned so much from her. Then the low point was the realization that she was full of BS. She was full of shit. She literally had lied about who she was, where she came from, the money she was associated with, all these clients. Everything was a lie. She was living with her parents in a bedroom, not getting out. She was on Centrelink. So we confronted her She denied everything. The money's coming, the money's coming, the money's coming. And I had spent about 40, 50 grand in crypto and Bitcoin, XRP. I was like, sold everything to make this work. Cause I was like, no worries. It's going to pay off. It's an investment. I'm all about paying and investing if it's going to pay off. And that was an investment that was a very expensive exercise that ripped apart a part of myself that was very manipulated, that trusted her, and it broke my trust, as well as my closest friends and the clients. It ruined a lot of that. Now, some of the relationships are still mending. Some maybe are not mendable, but it was a wild experience. That the positive of that is that it was a psychological training that no money or schooling could ever have provided. The intensity of the dynamics and the 5D chess that we were playing in the relationships of this whole thing was incredible. She had us running around doing backflips. She'd say jump and we'd say how high, and it took a toll mentally, emotionally, spiritually. She pretended to be Christian. She pretended to be praying with us at meetings and all this stuff. I was like, wow, how dark do you get to manipulate someone? And if we had just looked in her bag, we didn't look in her bag, but afterwards we did. Her company was liquidated. She had 3 lawyers approaching her for money. She had done this with other people. Someone else put a down deposit on a house for her and never followed through. Wow. And she even connected with sports teams in Melbourne and got her logo on their jerseys. They were running around the field, literally, with their logo on them. But this lady was all a lie. The whole thing was on property fund that never ended up eventuating. That's how smart this lady was. It's like that movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the series Inventing Anna. She pretended to be a trust fund baby from Europe in New York, gets hundreds of thousands of dollars from the bank as collateral just because of her personality. And it was a big lie. She went to jail. There's a TV show and movie and stuff made about it. It's just like incredible. So this is the final part. The rock bottom was when we went to the cops and we're like, guys, we spent all this money. How do we get this back? Is this fraud? What's our grounds? He said, guys, after 20 years of being an investigator, this is not a criminal crime. You paid her out of your volition, so she did nothing wrong. The best thing you guys should do is go to Netflix and pitch for this story. This is one of the best stories I've ever heard of. I've never heard of this before. Go to Netflix and pitch it as special. And so that was 3 years ago, man. And from that, that was the beginning of my second business, kind of collapsing. And then it's been like a rebuilding, Phoenix rising, the last 3 years since then, going, what is real? What is business? What is trust? What is relationships? What does it mean to have value? What is, and I was like, this relates to the mental illness stuff in my background. I'm like, what? This is a pattern? These crazy people around me, and I've gotten swept, swept along their wild goose chase and magic carpet. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And the biggest lesson I can teach everybody is to do your due diligence. If you're not asking the hard questions, you're literally falling into a fantasy. You need to ask the hard questions to break through and to read through past the facade, past the logo, past the hype, past the personal brand, past the money. Our brain can see fantasies, and fantasies aren't real and they collapse. What goes up must come down. And so it went up hard and it came down hard. And that was definitely one of my low points.
Yeah, I can somewhat resonate with that. I've shared on this podcast before, I think it was 2022. I got scammed and I had $90. I got scammed out of, probably not to the scale you were, but tens of thousands of dollars gone. May as well have just flushed it down the toilet. And going through a breakup at the time, so my heart was in 1,000 pieces. So my head wasn't, that's my excuse. I'll take it. So I was going through all that, had $92, I think, if I remember right, to my name. At that point, how do I pay the mortgage? All the strata and the power, all that round of bills is due in the next sort of 2 weeks. What the fuck am I going to do? Like, how am I going to get out of this? And I was actually on my treatment table in my office. There was a point where I viscerally understood why people take their own life. Like, that's where I went for a brief moment. So I got it. And I've worked with many people who are at that kind of point. And then as I was saying that question, it came from such a place of vulnerability and authenticity and just genuine, what the fuck? I heard a voice just saying, what a story. And from that, I got an impression of, when you speak to people like yourself, all the, successful people on TV, newspapers, magazines, podcasts, etc. They've all been through something. They've all been through something. That was just my thing. That was just my thing and my story to share. And it's interesting how you were saying, do your due diligence, if I can talk properly, because as you were saying, this lady came to your life who just seemed like an angel, right? You would have put her up on a pedestal, but when we put someone up on a pedestal, we automatically put ourselves down beneath them. So we are highlighted there, what we perceive to be all their positive, good, magical traits, but then we become unconscious of the darker side. And the more we put them up, the more we put ourselves down. And as Dean Martini would say, nothing's ever missing. So there has to be a left without a right, but otherwise it wouldn't exist. So for every light, there has to be a shadow. For every shadow, there has to be a light. But these people come into our lives and we're just, oh my God, you're amazing. And it sounds like she, had everyone around a little pinky. And we've all met people like that, and I certainly have. But it's just amazing that how unconscious we become of certain things. But also, we don't want to see that of them as well. We're caught up in that fantasy.
Life is hard. Let's be real. Life is a gift and an absolute blessing, and life is hard. And it's this range that we get to live. This is an experience where we're here, and why not play the piano? Some people are just playing one key of the piano their whole life and wondering why it's boring, and they're getting sick and they're feeling like they want to end life, and like the pain. Or some people I've met, they're playing the whole piano. They're literally playing the hard parts of life, and they're playing the angelic, philanthropic, heavenly based joy, gratitude, love, passion, they're doing everything in between. And it's those people I'm inspired by, regardless, like that story. And you had that moment of like, I'm ending this. This is it. You're on your healing table and you're like, I'm out. Like what a paradox. And
just
it's
take me now.
Those, and it's like those that are able, this is the defining factor, because everyone goes through shit. Everyone has the hard. Everyone plays one note from time to time, and they're like, this is, I want to get out. I want the exit button, take me there. But it's those that are able to change the perception of the story and change the meaning. Those are the ones that break through. And if it's anything I've learned from the last 100 guests on my podcast, I've learned that there's a certain way of thinking that creates success. There's a certain way of talking that creates success. There's a certain action that creates success. And we get to choose the meaning. We get to choose, oh my gosh, everything. How the past, how we look at that. And some people see the past as traumatic. I've lost everything. I've gone down further. I've lost it all. My family, my wealth, my spiritual connection. I'm done. I'm hooked on this. I'm hooked on that. But they look at that. Eventually there's grace. I think there's God's grace that allows them to see outside of that note. And they go, oh, there's another note here. Ding, ding. Oh, there's another note. Oh, what? There's some notes up here. Oh my gosh, there's life. I didn't know that life could be like this. And it's in those moments where people can have those shifts and start playing the different notes of life. They move themselves closer to their goals, their dreams, their desires, and their purpose. And it's, this podcast, you're doing the same thing. You're bringing people into the perception of being able to see life in a different way. And that was, I asked at the beginning, like, what's the main message here is that you want to help people become unstuck. And I love that. Being unstuck is something that is such a personal thing. Everyone's got their own inner demons and things going on and what they're facing. But it's, if there's one wish I could have for the whole world, is that we start to play life with all of the instruments, all of the colors, all of the sounds, all of the movements. We start moving our body in different ways. I've been getting into all this calisthenics / fascia lymph drainage stuff, this human garage stuff. I love it. All my neck pain is gone. My body feels so free from pain. I'm like, why didn't I start this 10, 20 years ago? Oh my gosh. Well, traveling, right? When I'm stuck in Australia and I'm in one place and doing one routine, I'm like, life is very bland. It's gray. Like, what is going on? The more that I travel, I'm like, wow, people have so many different realities in different places around the world. There's so many people. And it's like, if we're ever stuck in our problem, seriously, go traveling, get out of your comfort zone, go to see other people living in other ways for the better and for the worse. And I think that gives perspective. And it's in more perspective that we have, the more range that we have. Similarly in health, we can't just eat one food all day, every day. We've got to have a little bit of variety. We can't just drink one thing all day, every day. We've got to have some variety. So if we create this range of life and we allow ourselves to step into this kaleidoscope or this Rubik's Cube of different areas of life, to say the least, life is a Rubik's Cube, right? We're all figuring it out, but it's the meaning that we give it that changes it. Is the Rubik's Cube for you the beginning of the end? And it's a heavy experience, or is the Rubik's Cube for you a game and the beginning of possibility, and everything you learn is on the way, not in the way? You know, it's all about the perception, and it's all about our mindset within that. So
exactly,
couldn't agree more.
Really well said. I think every event really is just neutral by itself. It's not until we give meaning to it through our own biases, through our own beliefs, through our own experiences, we can't make sense of something. We can only make sense of something through our own biases of what's happened in the past, what's happened to us. And we can take a death, for example, and some people would see that as terrible. Some people might see it as good. It's all perspective, right? As you were saying, but it's the synthesis between the good and the bad, because they're both happening simultaneously. If we can get to there, that's when our emotional intelligence grows. That's when we can see the bigger picture. Einstein said a problem can't be solved with the same thinking that created it. But most people are trying to solve their problem with the same thinking that created the problem. So they get stuck here. It's not until you transcend that thinking, you can see the bigger picture of everything. Zach, you were mentioning you were doing a fast.
Can I jump in, Matt?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, absolutely. On that, I'm really, really glad you brought that up. And that's how a lot of my life was framed. My model of the world was everything just is, and it's the meaning we create to it, which is definitely a foundation that has helped me through the tough times. You know, how do I get through these moments where these tough things have happened? It's about sitting in my belief systems around the world and what does it mean to experience this? I'm a spiritual being, this short moment and blip of history, I'm part of this experience. That's great. Like it's helped me survive, maybe not always thrive, but at times thrive. It got me through the tough times and created more of the good times because it allows me to choose more of those. It's like being Morpheus. He's giving people the red pill, right? You get to choose the meaning. I'm going to show you the rabbit hole and how deep it goes, but there's no turning back. Or don't create the meaning, allow circumstances to shape the meaning and allow the external thing of the world to impact us. And that's the blue pill, right? And so I think before I was born, I double dumped the red pill, right? I was like, okay, let's go. And as you are too, this is why we're here. We're here to break people free from those chains and to step people into their potential. But the big but is that there's a double-edged sword to that even. There's the dark side of that, which is that there are things that if I do and people do, it causes inflammation in the body. It causes hurt. It causes suffering. So I understand that everything is and everything just is, but there's things that I am wildly against. For example, the shit that happened in the Epstein files, as much as that just is, and it's just a meaning that we create for it, that is like the lowest of low. That's evil. And so when I was 27 years old, a friend of mine, I went through a breakup and I went and hung out with a friend and he showed me all the conspiracies. And all the dark sides to the music industry and how the music industry has lyrics and certain frequencies to keep us in our lower brainwave. Showed the movies and how certain movies, if you slowed it down, there's certain hidden images and things and symbolisms that were based on occult and paganism and just crazy sacrifice, like paganism worship. And they were worshiping Satan and like the devil. And I was like, what is all this energy and time and intent to make a movie or music, as you know, and with editing, there's no mistakes. You're editing it hundreds of times to make it perfect. You're putting hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars into a movie to make it perfect. There's no mistakes. If you think of Disney, look at Disney movies, there's all these sexual innuendos. And if you freeze the screen, it says sex. And there's boobs and tits and bum and like all these different things and like these sexual connotations in movies for kids. So I was 27. He's showing me all this stuff. I'm like, bro, like what the heck? Okay, so there's this dark side, there's this evil side. You can't have one without the other, right? It's like, okay, what's the other side? And so he goes, well, it's Jesus. I was like, okay. And I had no stigma around Jesus. I wasn't religious growing up. I had no like negative connotations or anything. I was like, okay, tell me about that guy. That guy seems like a fascinating human. And so long story short, when I was 27, I started to research the Bible, and not just the Bible, but the hidden texts and the texts that are not in the Bible and different kind of philosophers and scholars outside of the Bible. And that's been a lot of, a lot of the stuff in the Bible, man, like there's some tenets or like, I guess, pillars, commandments, they call them, on, I think, how to live a pretty good life. And anytime that I do anything outside of that, it causes chaos in my life. Or like the 7 deadly sins. Anytime I lead into the 7 deadly sins, the top one's pride. It should be pride and ego filled. Anytime I do that, it ends up being short-term success or short-term, maybe a rise of pleasure, but then a massive level of falling down, right? It's like the pendulum swings. And I think there's times that if we stay in the 7 deadly sins too long, it does create chaos and a life that's wildly unstable. And I think a lot of the world that we live in today, through the music that we hear, the movies that we watch on Netflix, the food that's polluted, intentionally designed to have toxins and everything in it, with the pharmaceuticals being the top of the list, with doctors not knowing how to eat properly and know about nutrition, all the stuff they pump into the air or the water. There's so much stuff that's there that's literally causing us to live a shorter lifespan, causing more autism, mental illness, Alzheimer's, dementia, heart attacks, all this stuff. And most of it's preventable. And that's why I love jumping on these podcasts, because it's like there is a system out of that way. And some people are swimming in that, and that's fine. Just know that, Matt's podcast and other people's knowledge and people out there are actually trying to break people out of that, because to be healthy in today's day and age, I think is really, really simple. We go up with the sun. Just look at the sunrise. If there's one health hack that's changed my life more than anything, it's seeing the sunrise. One, I get up earlier, so I have more time. Time is our biggest, most valuable asset, and our attention. And it's the red light into the eyes, onto the skin and everything like that. It's so healing. And then one of the other best things to do is to get sunlight on our skin between 10 and 2 p.m. because that's when vitamin D forms. Everyone's like, yeah, vitamin D supplements. But when does vitamin D form with the sunlight? It's only between 10 and 2. If you're getting sun outside of that, you're not building vitamin D. And so I'm in the sun 30 minutes to an hour, as open, as much body skin in the game as possible. And then at nighttime, watching the sunset and having no fake light or very minimal fake light at nighttime. So I go to bed earlier, blue blockers, red lights, things like this in my environment. That circadian rhythm is what God wants us to do, in my opinion. He created this simulation in a way that's structured with certain principles, and this garden out here and our food supply and the whole life of this planet comes from the sun. And so if we're not integrating that energy into our life every day, we're missing out. We're missing out. And that would be the foundation. Then it's stress. Stress is one of the biggest killers. And stress comes from everything we do today: social media, comparison, mental chatter, even the mental chatter of worry, or anxiety and depression and like all these different bipolar thoughts that we might have. That causes it takes a lot of sugar and calories from the body.
Mm.
It's a lot of energy, but it also causes a lot of stress and cortisol. And so one of the biggest things that causes stress, or actually reduces stress, is co-regulation. So I met a guy who was an expert on co-regulation the other day, and he says stress is the biggest killer. It exacerbates every other illness. We have tendencies depending on our genetics and epigenetic expression, but stress exacerbates all the bad stuff. And so the best thing you can do is co-regulate. Co-regulate with, number one was with our partner, a loved one, a hug, a cuddle. Intimacy with a loved one is the most soothing thing that we can do. Electromagnetic alignment, right? It's like two become one. Secondly, he said is actually our relationship with God, because it's being in relationship with our creator, whatever that means to the individual, is a co-regulatory experience. Being in prayer, meditation, being in silence with no distraction, having that relationship with God is what actually a very soothing and calming thing to our nervous system that reduces stress really fast. And then you've got breath work and exercise and food and fasting, they all come afterwards to reduce stress. But I thought it was so interesting. So just to recap, the sunlight stuff is my go-to every day. And the stress stuff is my secondary thing. And then thirdly, it's purpose, goal setting. I'm a big believer in goal setting, purpose, and doing the things that I love on this planet, like these podcasts or my podcast or my work and things like that. Those are the things that also give us energy as well. And they say those that actually live into their purpose, when they did brain scans and opened up people's brains, they had a stronger connection in their brain with more a healthy brain from those that follow their purpose and live their purpose. They were able to handle stress better, and they were able to actually have a healthier body and brain because of their ability to focus and live their purpose. So it's one of the healthiest things we can do.
Yeah,
that was a bit of a rant, wasn't it, Matt? I go on some rants,
I like
don't I?
I'm all for a rant. And just to sort of back up what you were saying with the, being in resonance, first of all, with your partner. It doesn't have to be a partner, it can be a friend and, whoever, whatever else. But do you know Heart Math Institute?
I do.
Yeah, so they did a study.
I'm fascinated by Heart Math.
Years ago. So they did a study where they put electrocephalograms on people, electrocardiograms on people, and what they found was that all these people in a room, I've got to get this right. The heart rate of the stronger people showed up in the brainwave of the weaker people.
Oh, wow.
So that's just resonance right there. And what they also found was when you were talking about, connecting to your purpose and having that drive to do it, they showed I think it was a 60% increase in activity of the commissarial fibers, which connect the left and right hemispheres of the brain, to go towards that place where you want to go. And it's that drive that essentially, you can do all I did Egyptian sun gazing for a year, where you wake up and where you see the first, I think, 10, 15 minutes or the last 10, 15 minutes direct looking at the sun. And as you said, you can just feel it pierce through and just sort of strip things away. But I've suggested that to countless people, but unless they have that purpose to want to do it, and if they are doing something like that for their health, so I mean, our hormonal system is driven by the solar lunar rhythms, right? So if they're out of sync, every single hormonal pathway is out of sync, straight up. Until you have that drive to want to do that and connecting that to someone's dream or their drive, then people feel empty. But as you were saying, it comes back to that: what's your goal? What's your dream in this life? And Paul Chek talks about that extensively. And we can do all the hacks and the breath works and, all the measurements. And I was watching, what's that guy who wants to live forever? Forget his name.
Brian Johnson,
yes. I was watching his show or his documentary, and it's like bit extreme for me. I kind of get where he's coming from, but his drive, that's what I admire about that whole thing. He's just like laser.
Obsessed. That's one of the defining key traits of the successful people I've interviewed and been around, is that they have an obsession. And some would see it as crazy. These are the crazy ones. They have the vision of what's possible, something no one has ever seen before. They see something that's invisible to others. And we need those people because it moves society forward. It moves us into an innovatory, progressive, solution-based outcome that they're typically considered slightly crazy because there's no balance. And life, and this is interesting. It's like nature has balance, but it doesn't have balance. It's like the paradox too, because you might know some people that are wildly creative, wildly visionary. These are like the leaders who are like seeing something different, but then they can't tie their shoes properly, so to speak, or that have anger issues like Steve Jobs, right? He had this vision, but he was like incredibly rude and aggressive to his staff and things like this from what I've heard too. So it's this like weird paradox. But what you said with heart math in the Bible, the more that I learn about the Bible, there's all these like one-liners and truths that like blow my mind. Hebrews 7:7 talks about the lesser is blessed by the greater. So the greater gives to the lesser, like exactly what you're saying. It's like this resonance thing, which is a tricky thing, because which goes into the whole philosophy of like who we spend time with is who we become. If we spend time with depressed, anxious, low vibe people, eventually we're going to end up as depressed, anxious, low vibe people, because the energy and that resonance, it doesn't matter how high you are, if you surround yourself with too many negative people. Similarly, if I want to get a six pack, or I want to be a millionaire, I want to go hang out with people with a six pack or a millionaire or happy people, right? And do what they do and be in that resonance. And it's important. That's why what I've learned, especially here in Dubai, man, like there's a level of success, but also a level of exclusivity, that the exclusivity comes out of protection. It's not like that they don't want to help other people. It's that like by welcoming people into their circle that have the lower vibe, that maybe it's not just success, it's a mindset, it's an energy, it's like a taking, it's like the lesser energy vibration. By letting that into a successful mastermind or group or business or team, one drop of poison can kill the whole thing. And so it's wildly interesting, man. The more that I study the Bible and also the biblical principles on health and wellness, and also wealth, and also marriage and relationships, the more that I look at this and I'm like, this is a very interesting prescription on how to regulate my nervous system. I'm like, if you think about, oh my God, don't get me started, but yeah, that's probably been one of my biggest breakthrough moments in the last 12 months as I've gone into more of my own Bible study. I don't resonate with going to too many churches. There's a church in Gold Coast. It's like a little back alley. It's like a shack. There's no advertising. You kind of pull up going, where are we? Every time I walk in there, man, I cry. There's this like, there's like tears of just this like love, unconditional love. And it's just overwhelming. I believe God is love. A lot of these churches I go to, man, I don't have any of that, I don't have any of that. And they're all sitting on a fake light, talking and doing these things that I'm just not a big fan of in I guess, in life in general. And I think, it's about a holistic journey to come into God. A lot of it's with our health. If we can't master our body, the thing that God gave us here on this planet, this vessel of this thing, this temple that we're working and living in and experiencing life through, if we can't value this every day, how are we supposed to value others or business or creating something if we can't fully? And that's that integrity or that hypocrisy that we were talking about before, right? People wanting to tell everyone else, do this, do this, do this, but are they actually like a health coach or a fitness coach who's fat, or someone who's a wealth coach who's not wealthy? Like what world we live in? It's so back to front a lot of the time. So yeah, and then that last point, I took notes here. And so what you're saying is that until you have that, like, what is the defining factor? The obsession. One of my mentors would call it the affliction. It's like there's this level of spark of like insatiable quench that you need to create. We are creators, and I love creating things like building or like online AI stuff and vibe coding now, business and like whiteboarding and like all these things. I love creating this stuff. And I think the people that don't create, it's not that they need to do more and add more onto their psyche. It's that they need to unlearn the limiting habits that they learned from their mom and their dad, or the schooling stuff, or what they've learned about relationships, or what they do with health. And man, the more that we unlearn and cut all those ties, the lighter people feel energetically in the past, and trauma stuff releases. And then the answers like actually show up. The clarity shows up and the excitement shows up. And it's like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to here to do. I'm supposed to be a soccer player, or I'm supposed to be a singer, I'm supposed to be a mom or a dad or whatever that thing is, or an entrepreneur. That's when that shows. I think if people haven't found that thing that excites them, it's because there's layers of the onion that are holding them back and they can't hear. How are you supposed to hear if you're stuck inside a glass bottle? How are you supposed to see your brilliance if you're stuck in a glass bottle? You can't even see the label. And that's where most people are. They need to break out of that glass bottle and then actually see themselves in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, I'm here for a reason. I've got to get to work.
So I do a lot of teaching for the Czech Institute, and so I teach level 1, level 2. In level 1, there's often students where they're in the class to train to be like holistic health practitioner. So we're teaching them how to design a holistic exercise program, which includes how to measure posture, how to measure physiological load, rep sets, tempo, etc. Put all that together to balance the person out and then eventually take them to where they want to go. A lot of the students in the class are electricians, plumbers, accountants, whatever. And there's always that hesitation, that imposter syndrome cloud to go into that. What is your advice for someone like that?
So what is my advice on how to break through imposter syndrome?
Well, just how to transition the career, let's say.
Well, yeah, I can totally relate. I've seen people and have moments in my own language where I'm like, oh, I can't do that because I'm a X. I remember sitting down having fish and chips with a friend, and I was watching a TV series at the time in the shop, and there was like some acting going on. And my friend goes, oh, I could never do that. Could never see myself doing that as an actor. I could just never see myself doing that. And I looked at it going, and I just started acting classes at the time. And I was like, I can kind of see myself doing that. I kind of have done that. That's what I've been doing. I've been doing some film and TV, and I look at my scenes back. I could see myself doing that. And so what's the difference? The difference is his inner dialogue, whether he believes he could or whether he believes he can't, he's right. Henry Ford. And so he, in his mind's eyes, thought, I can't do that. And then he'll never do that, ever. And similarly, if I keep strengthening, I can do this. I can see myself doing that. I can visualize that. I want to practice that. And I spend time with other people, and I do that, and I film and I watch it back. I'm doing that. I already do that. It builds the belief. And I think there's like the 4 stages of learning: unconscious incompetence, right? We have no idea what we're doing. We're riding a bike and I don't even know how to get on it. I don't know how to pedal. I'm falling over. Unconscious incompetence. Then you got conscious incompetence. You know what to do, but you're bad at it. You know how to ride a bike, but you're hitting into stuff. You're like, oh, I need to know. I know I do this, but this is. And then you've got conscious competence, where you're consciously aware of what you're doing. You don't fall over anymore with the bike. You're moving, and you're doing some jumps, but you're still having to think about it. You're consciously competent. You're aware, but you're also aware of you're like this. And then lastly is unconscious competence. You're just unconscious, the unconscious mind, which rules most of our life. It's inbuilt. It's who you are. It's how you show up. You're here podcasting. You're here out in the world working or doing, or an athlete, kicking the ball. Eventually, after the 10,000 hours, hopefully we get to unconscious competence. And I think the thing that most people struggle with in terms of being stuck around procrastination or around imposter syndrome is that they haven't tried enough.
Mm.
I've tried 1,000, 10,001 different business ideas and failed. I've brainstormed things with people that went nowhere. You know, I've thrown myself into auditioning for acting and got rejected multiple times. I've thrown myself into videos and done things. I'm going, I'm deleting that. Oh, screw it. I'll post it online. But it's putting ourselves in the uncomfortable long enough that the uncomfortable becomes comfortable. And we all live in a comfort zone. And a lot of the time, human nature, we look at the pain, because pain, if we remove pain, then we have pleasure. But if you remove pain, I don't think you have pleasure. You just have survival.
Oh.
It's thrival that happens when we actually look at the pain, we assess the pain, we're able to strategize with people around us and say, hey, this pain is always going to be here. Let's put systems in place. Let's actually align our life to the practices that allow us to be healthy or wealthy or rich or happy or spiritually connected. And let's live in that. It's not going to be easy. There's always going to be moments of darkness. There's things we've got to protect. But if we live in that together, in unity, in community, I think that's the riches of life. And I think people don't get to the richness of life because they're stuck just looking at the problem. Like if you've got the whiteboard, here we go. If we've got our comfort zone, right? And then you've got the uncomfortable zone. And then you've actually got the unknown zone, which is really where the best life happens. You can probably hardly see this here, but the best life happens out here where you're living on the edge, but there's this unconscious competence of trust and support from our creator. And we're doing the things that we love and loving what we do. But most people are stuck here in our comfort zone, looking at the problem. Now, if I went up to that dot and just put it against my head, and all I'm going to see like this, all I'm going to see is the problem. If I'm only looking at the problem, I just dropped that in my pocket. Catch. And so what I would say to people is look at the problem. That's fine. But study the problem, be curious of the problem, ask questions and think outside the box, put it through AI, get a coach, get a mentor, right? Read a book. think these problems have happened to other people. We need to realize that the answers and solutions are more accessible now than ever before. People that have burnout, people that have depression, people have yes, there's clinical things that can't be healed, but majority of the time, people are just stuck looking at the problem and they haven't even looked at the solutions. Go outside, look at the sunrise, drink some quality water, stop eating McDonald's every day, right? Go to bed at a reasonable time. Stop looking at comparing yourself on social media to everyone every night. Like, we need to think outside of the box. And so what I would say to these people is you haven't tried enough times. When I ask people, it's like, you want to be healthy? You want to be wealthy? What have you tried? Oh, I tried this one e-com thing on Shopify once.
Yes.
I went to the gym once. What are you talking about? You need to go 1,000 times and then decide, right? Start something 1,000 times. Just keep going. And what ends up being hard ends up becoming easy. The uncomfortable becomes comfortable, and you build this resilience, this container, this capacity that holds more of life. And the meaning of life is what we can hold. If you can only hold a little like being rejected once on social media, that's your meaning. You can only hold that level of rejection. Or if you can hold the world's rejecting you and you're going to stand up, share your truth from the front of the room instead of being stuck at the end of the back of the room, not asking questions or getting on stage in high school. If you're then going to put yourself out there, you can do that and you're going to be able to hold that. And it takes time. And we only learn that through community, the right people, the right coaching, and being okay with looking messy. The first time I did handstands, I looked like a drunk, person that should never do handstands, right? But the more that I did handstands, now eventually I'm really good at handstands. And I think people, for example, this example, people need to choose something long enough to get good at it. And when we choose something, doesn't matter what it is, something that we're aligned with, or a book, or get to the end of a book, or go to a workout and go every day, a few times a week or whatever for a month or 6 months. Do something that allows you to be consistent so that you look back on that and go, oh my gosh, this was the person I was then. This is the person I am now. And in that comparison, you then build this esteem of I'm capable. I believe I can. What else can I do? oh, I can do this, I can do that. Oh, I can go for this, I can go for that. So that's what I would say.
Yeah,
Something
I
like
think that's
that.
perfect. It's really basically what you're explaining was Dr. Dan Siegel's definition of mind. Have you heard that?
No, tell me.
So he's a psychiatrist, but he defined mind is the embodied and relational process that regulates energy and information. So what you're saying is you've got the desire to want to, let's say, change the career. Have the desire, practice what you're learning, practicing it so much that you actually embody what you're doing. And repetition, just like learning how to, let's say, deadlift for the first time. The first time it's a bit, you start light and it's a bit, okay, you're not going to enter Olympic Games anytime soon. That's fine. We're just learning. But the more you do it, it becomes subconsciously competent, unconsciously competent, and then you just do it without even thinking about it. But then you're doing it. You are it. And most people don't take the time to, I'd say, recognize the journey, but also celebrate when they're there as well. But also when they're there, that horizon is always shifting as well. Because, I want to be successful business. Well, what does that mean? And then that's going to change once you get there. And then that's going to change, and that's going to change. So it's a continual evolution.
100%. Yeah, that's similar. It reminds me of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's 13 Principles of Success. He went and interviewed loads of these super successful people through Andrew Carnegie, who was a Freemason and a billionaire or millionaire at the time. And he was able to connect Napoleon Hill with all these people, supposedly. There's that never happened. It was all made up. But I kind of like the story. And so you got these 13 principles. The first principle is desire. You have to have a desire. And what you were saying before, some people have lost that desire. When you're on your bed and you've lost everything, you're like, I can't do this. There's no desire and we want to kill ourselves. That's a lot of the time. It's tragic. There's how many people in Australia do to commit suicide every single week? It's insane. It's such a sad story. But it's not that they don't have the desire. I think the second part, which is Think and Grow Rich, principle number 2, is faith. And, faith of something more and hope and possibility and this future based. Because anytime I think about the past and I stack all these negative dots, life gets heavy. And I think those 13 principles, the next one being autosuggestion, which is the power of our subconscious mind, the affirmations, the things we say to ourselves. Literally, Dr. Emoto talks about how putting words on water when he freezes them creates different outcomes, different structures, structures and things like this. And have you heard the thing now where people are drawing images and putting it on a cup of water and then freezing the water, and the same image that's underneath the water is then frozen in this ice? So important. And when I interviewed Mikey for my podcast, he hadn't eaten for 300 plus days. Okay. Wild. But disclaimer, he was eating through sunlight, through grounding, through fascia movements, lymphatic movements. And he was building muscle because his body was clean and it was expanding. And he's documented this whole thing. His eyes are getting clearer. His hair's growing back. I don't recommend what he does straight away for people because he's been doing it for 20 years. But there's so much power inside of our mind, inside of our body, inside of just our electromagnetic being and interaction with people that we're not stepping into. And it's these podcasts and stuff that hopefully remind us to keep on that path. But what I also got, I could go through all the 13 principles of Think and Grow Rich, but I guess I'll stop there. But it's, desire. Having that desire for more, goal setting, have that goal that's going to excite you, have a definite aim. Bob Proctor talks about having the goal card in your pocket every day, right? Have that there, touch it, feel it, think of it every single day. Have faith. It's definitely one of the things. 70% of the people I've interviewed over 100 on my podcast have all spoken. My podcast is about entrepreneurship and business and investing. They bring up faith without me asking. They talk about God, or they talk about the relationship with the creator. as their compass and as the voice from within, which is beautiful. And that's the second principle. And the third one is then that mindset, the auto-suggestion from Think and Grow Rich being auto-suggestion. And we can literally make ourselves believe anything, right? There's kids out there who love smoking on vapes. Oh, that's such a good thing to do. And people like, that is the most addictive, unhealthy thing we can do, right? Or there's people out there who are okay with brushing their teeth with fluoride when it's documented to be a neurotoxin for the brain. People out there drinking Coca-Cola and McDonald's and fast food and toxin food, and they're okay with that. We condition ourselves to, the first time I drank a beer, that was gross, but I kind of like the taste of good quality beer now. You know what I mean? Like we can condition ourselves for anything, Oh my gosh, it's wild. And so we get to choose. That's what Morpheus did with the red pill. That's what you're doing here on the podcast. It's like we're giving people choice and options to get unstuck. If you want, there's free will. You can stay there, or you can try these 101 things before the pharmaceuticals, before the chemo, before the surgery. There's 100, maybe 1,001 things that you can do before that. And that's what we want to give people hope and faith and possibility for, right?
I just hope people aren't in so much pain that they're forced to try those 1,001 things beforehand. But
pain is
Zach,
the thing. You're right.
Certainly,
yeah, pain is like whenever I'm hurting or something, it's hard to do anything else, right? Pain is such a big thing. We apparently can only focus on one pain at a time. But I swear, and there's one little thing I'll just share is that these fascia movements I've been doing, for any entrepreneur out there, for any high achiever, you're sitting at a desk, you're on your phone, we're living in the most unnatural time in human history, but we have access to the most natural things ever as well. That's the paradox. But if you have neck pain or back pain or body pain, that's impacting your purpose. How can you do your purpose if you've got that pain? It's really tricky. And I'm sure you would have a whole bunch on this as well, Matt, regarding your background. But man, the more that I do these fascia movements, I jump up 100 or so times. I do just basic movements. I don't need to go to the gym. I do it outside in the sun, right? I take as many clothes off as possible, and I'm just doing these movements and doing this neck stuff. The pain is gone in my body, and I'm more expressive on podcasts like this. I'm more passionate and like charismatic. I'm less anxious. I'm more present, and I'm more creative in my everyday. And I think if we keep playing that one note in life, we're only going to get that one result. If you want other results, guys, we've got to start playing the notes. And that comes with moving our body, starts with moving our body and our breath, doing the CO2 training, like breathing all the way out, holding, allowing myself to actually feel what it feels like to not have oxygen. That's the range that I'm talking about. If you're breathing in one spectrum of your whole life, that's meaning in our life comes from breath, right? You know what it's like being a breathwork coach and working through some breath. It changes everything. We can die in a couple of minutes without breath. So our breath is number one before anything else, before water, before food. And man, I just wish everybody can for 30 days, do yourself a favor, do these fascia lymphatic movements. Maybe you can recommend some, Matt, as well, because that will free up so much pain out of the body and out of the suffering out of the body, even the trauma and the negative thoughts. It just releases because it gets stuck in the fascia, right? Go get a massage once a week for a month and do this fascia movement for a month. Message me, I'll send it to you. And I can guarantee you're going to be a different person in 30 days.
Well, for the people watching this, you can see just how good looking Zach is and how passionate he
Day
is.
6 of my fast. Day 6 of my fast. Apple cider vinegar, ginger, lemon, salt, really good salt, and a little bit of electrolytes, just no sugar, no carbs. Just been drinking that every day, doing some colonic irrigation. Let's be real, that helps as well to flush the body and the digestive system. A little bit of a fiber supplement to help move that through the body too. I did another 7-day one 4 months ago, and I did a 14-day water fast 5 years ago. Definitely changed my whole view on what is food, what's possible. It's a mind, body, and spirit reset. I can't recommend it enough. If you guys want to come closer to your...
Definitely is,
the insight into the power of our body and the power from why we're here and your purpose. You're feeling stuck, guys? do a 1-day fast. We do them every month for free. You can go onto my website, zachdeane.com. You can join us free, fill in the form. If you're pregnant or on heavy meds, don't join. Fasting's not for everybody. We do an intake that's quite rigorous before you join us, but it's a free experience. Come and join us, and we walk you through really fasting in a really easy, simple, and fun way. And together, it's so much easier together.
Well, Zach, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your genius and sharing it with the audience. Thank you for sharing it with the world. Where do you want to direct people to? And if people want to learn more about you, where do you want them to go?
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Matt. Beautiful questions. I shared some parts of my story I had never shared with anybody, so I felt really safe and welcome to you, so thank you. And everyone listening, if you resonate with me and you want to join our fast once a month, come along, go to my website, zachdeane.com. If you're out there, you're a professional, you're an entrepreneur or an investor, want to be on my podcast, please jump onto my website as well and book in a 15-minute call with me. I'd love to meet you. And that's about it. Yeah, appreciate your time.
Awesome, bro. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for The Body's Compass with Matt Sorensen and today's guest, Zach Deane. If you want to find out more about Zach, check out his Instagram at Zach Deane or his website, zachdeane.com. That's Deane spelt D-E-A-N-E. If any of this episode resonates, share it with someone it might help. If it helped you, come back. Before you go, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating and a warm review. It helps people find the show. Until next time.